And 3, 2, and 1.
Alright, so does anyone know what the symbol means? Luke.
It means it's like the Russian flag symbol.
Anyone else got an idea?
It's a symbol of communism.
Yes. So everyone pretty much knows what the symbol means. It means that everyone gets equal economic and land equality, and everything is split evenly. But does anyone know how communism was founded?
By the Romans.
No. Spartacus was actually the main cause of communism, and I'm going to tell you why. Alright, so I did Spartacus. Alright, so the importance, or my thesis statement, was that Spartacus inspired the idea of communism, and he even had a political party named after him, the Spartakusbund, or the Spartacus League, which is a German communist party. And he inspired it because he treated all of his soldiers equally, and actually divided all the loot equally among all his men. Alright, so I was wondering about Spartacus' early life, and the truth is, no one really knows much about Spartacus' early life, except for the fact that he was born and raised in Thrace. No one actually even knows how he even got into slavery. Some believe that he either fought the Romans in war and was captured, or he fought in a Roman auxiliary unit, disbanded, and became a bandit, but then was recaptured and sold into slavery. And that's how he got into slavery. As a slave, he was sold into a gladiatorial school in Capua, Italy, where he didn't have very many fights, but did fight a few fights, probably against one of his friends, Crixus, who later helped him escape. Spartacus was treated extremely harshly. All gladiators were, and that's one of the reasons that he escaped later on. So Spartacus' rebellion, otherwise known as the Third Servile War, he escaped from Capua with just 70 men, with his lieutenants Crixus, Odenamus, and a few others. And he went down to Mount Vesuvius after killing all the guards at Capua. They took all the swords, shields, and everything from there. And as they traveled to Mount Vesuvius, they gained about 40,000 men here. And as he continued to wreak havoc on the countryside, he got about 120,000. By the time he reached this uppermost portion, Rome was starting to get worried because he had defeated one of their legionaries here by using vines to climb down Mount Vesuvius and coming into their camp when they weren't ready. So they started sending in bigger legions, and he had a big battle here, but then defeated them. He then had the opportunity to slip into the Alps and into Gaul, which is a portion of what is now France. But his men decided not to go, so he then also decided not to go because their families had either been killed or enslaved and were no longer in that portion of the land. So he decided to go back down into the southernmost part of Italy. And he was once again met in battle. And about here is when they started going into panic. Pompey, which was a general in Spain, was called back, and a man named Crassus was also put in charge of all of Rome's legions. So as he continued to travel through the southernmost part of Italy, he eventually reached the tip of Italy, where he was going to try to get into Sicily because he knew he was in trouble. He thought if he could get to Sicily, he could recruit more slave soldiers, but he hired Sicilian pirates to get him there, and he told them he would give them half the money then and half the money now. So he gave them half the money and they just took off, which stranded him in the middle of Rome. And you can also see here what the soldier might have looked like. They would have shields, kind of like any gladiatorial shield would be, if they had a shield. And most of them just look like Neo does right now. Just look very little clothing, no armor. Okay, but then he decided to move up, and Crassus was afraid that Pompey would get there before him and defeat Spartacus. Decided to trap. He decided to trap Spartacus behind a wall. He created a wall, and it went just about over the tip of Italy, and it trapped Spartacus inside the tip. His army eventually broke through, and he was met in open combat by Crassus, where his army was slaughtered, and Spartacus's body was never found. Crassus actually took about 6,000 men captive, slaves captive, and he crucified them along the Appian Way, which is between Rome and this tip here, which is about 3,000 miles. And they had slaves about every 30 meters. So if you can imagine, about 3,000 miles, every 30 meters, there's another slave. And that was pretty... Spartacus' body was never found. He might have been crucified or killed in open combat. Are there any questions?
No.
How long was the third survival?
It was 3 years between 73 BC to 71 BC. That's it.
How old was Spartacus when he was a gladiator?
I actually do not know that. Very little was known about his